What is actually happening in Islamabad right now sits in direct contradiction to everything Washington wants you to believe. The framing coming out of the White House is almost entirely disconnected from what observers can see with their own eyes. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garibabadi walked into these talks and made Tehran's position clear from the start. This delegation did not come to negotiate, it came to issue demands. That distinction carries real weight. When a party arrives at a table and announces it will not exchange concessions but will instead present terms, that party does not believe it lost, and the demands leave no room for ambiguity. Authority over the Strait of Hormuz, full war reparations, the unfreezing of all blocked Iranian financial assets, a comprehensive permanent regional ceasefire, and long-term security guarantees covering not just Iran, but every proxy network it maintains across the Middle East. Iran's official social media accounts posted it in capital letters. This discussion is centered on our demands. They also posted time to seal the victory in beautiful Islamabad, and none of that reads like the language of a nation that has been broken. If you're learning something here, please hit subscribe. Many of you are aware of what's been happening with the channel. If you feel like supporting, a link in the description. I've spent months researching what's coming between 2026 and 2030, and I put it all into an ebook called The Next Global Shift: How to Stay Ahead of Economic Collapse and War. The economies, the conflicts, the moves you need to make. If you want my ebook, link in the description. Let's get into the video. Now compare that to what the Trump administration has been broadcasting publicly, because the contrast tells you almost everything. Trump posted this morning that Iran is losing and losing big, and then wrote, and this needs to be stated clearly, praise be to Allah, mockingly invoking the deaths of Iranian leaders while his own negotiating team sat across a table from Iran's foreign minister and parliament speaker at that very moment. That is not psychological pressure applied with strategic intent, that is incoherence. You do not mock your counterpart's religion and their dead while your own people are in the room trying to reach an agreement with those same counterparts. The Strait of Hormuz incident from today reveals the problem even more sharply. A senior American official told Axios reporter Barack Ravid that several U.S. Navy destroyers transited the strait from east to west and back again, completely unimpeded, with no Iranian contact whatsoever. Iran's Tasnim agency and the foreign ministry spokesperson told a completely different story. A U.S. destroyer approached the strait, received a direct warning from Iran's armed forces, and turned back. According to the Iranian account, Iran's foreign minister and parliament speaker informed Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif mid-negotiation that the vessel was approaching, stated Iran would walk out if it did not retreat, and the destroyer turned around. These two accounts cannot coexist, and the behavioral pattern surrounding these talks points in one direction. Iran arrived posting victory language, riding in Mercedes Maybachs, being received as heroes in Pakistan. The United States responded by leaking anonymously to a single journalist. The composition of the delegation sitting in that room deserves close attention. Iran assembled roughly a dozen of its most senior technical and diplomatic officials, people holding deep expertise in nuclear technology, enrichment processes, and the architecture of regional security agreements, many with PhDs and decades of institutional knowledge behind them. The United States sent J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, a group without a single person who holds substantive expertise in nuclear capability or enrichment technology. These talks have already moved into what both sides are calling technical discussions on implementation, and that's when the knowledge gap becomes structurally decisive. Iran negotiates on home terrain in those technical sessions. The American side does not, and Witkoff and Kushner already botched the previous round of negotiations, which makes their presence in Islamabad even harder to explain. The ceasefire framework explicitly included Lebanon. That was Iran's condition for protecting its regional allies, and the Trump administration accepted that condition. Iran extracted that guarantee. And yet, in the 24 hours alone, while these face-to-face talks have been underway, the Israeli Air Force carried out over 200 strikes on Hezbollah targets and infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Earlier this week, strikes on Beirut killed between 200 and 250 people, with over 1,000 casualties reported. The Trump administration negotiated a ceasefire that one of its closest partners violated actively and publicly while the negotiations were still in progress. And that tells every party sitting in Islamabad exactly what an American guarantee delivers in practice. Iran anticipated this. That is why Tehran's stated position holds that you cannot negotiate with a party that lies about everything. That framing reflects a strategic calculation grounded in observable behavior, not just rhetoric. If Washington cannot enforce compliance from its own allies during active talks, then any commitment it makes is structurally unenforceable from the American side, and Iran's conclusion follows directly. Extract maximum verifiable structural concessions up front rather than trusting a process that history shows will erode. The demands, not the negotiations, are the logical result. Trump's own post confirmed the Iranian read. He wrote this morning that America is clearing out the Strait of Hormuz as a favor to China, Japan, South Korea, France, and Germany. But weeks ago, the explicit message was that America had no obligation to police international waterways for anyone else's benefit. Now it's a favor. Now empty tankers are rushing to America. Now Trump monitors fertilizer prices in the middle of a war. These are not the posts of someone managing a coherent strategic narrative. These are the posts of someone managing anxiety in real time, and the difference between those two things matters enormously when you are trying to project strength at a negotiating table in Islamabad. Here is where the analysis lands. Iran absorbed real military damage, its navy degraded, air defenses weakened, senior figures killed, and despite all of that, it walked into Pakistan and successfully reframed the entire post-conflict process as a term-setting exercise rather than a peace settlement. The United States arrived without technical expertise at the table, without allied support in the room, managing an active ceasefire violation by its own partner, and led by a president whose public posts were undercutting his own team in real time. One side arrived believing it had won. The other side arrived managing a domestic audience. The room in Islamabad reflects that gap clearly, and no amount of social media posting changes what that room actually contains. This is the video today. If you want my ebook, link in the description. See you later.